All right, guys, welcome back to the 21 Convention. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch as much as I did. Our next speaker that we have lined up for you has been featured on the New York Times, VH1, even the Dr. Phil show. But that's not nearly as impressive as being a 4-time speaker at the 21 Convention. He's going to talk about the things that hold you back that you can't see. Without further ado, DJ Fuji, please take the stage.
Orlando! This is year 3. Let's see if we can sound out like we got a pair. Good afternoon, Orlando! Yeah. Let's give a round of applause to your host, and to Anthony Johnson, and to your entire staff. My name, as you all know, is DJ Fuji, and I'm here to talk to you guys today about blind spots. I thought a lot about what am I going to talk about that someone else hasn't already covered? What am I going to cover that you guys aren't bored to tears of hearing? And I realized there's a lot of things out there that nobody actually knows is holding them back. There's a lot of concepts, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of drills. There's a lot of things out there that are holding you guys back. And the problem is you have no idea. So today we're going to talk about blind spots. Blind spots are undetected cancers. They're the cancer in your body that's eating away at you. They're things that are holding you back in game, in life, in career, in everything. The problem is you don't know they're there. You don't know what's causing them. You don't know what's creating that problem. That's what we're here to eliminate today. Blind spots are a little bit like driving. We've all been driving, right? And we don't check our blind spot. We make that lane change. Person behind us honks, or the person next to us that we're about to hit. Hopefully they honk. Hopefully we don't just plow into them. And I know there's some Asian guys sitting here, so I know you know what I'm talking about. Well, those are called blind spots. If you don't check your blind spots, you don't check for that car there, you just plow right into it. When you look in your mirror, you can't see that blind spot. That's why it's called a blind spot. Same thing in pickup and in game. These are concepts that no one teaches. I don't know why. I've tried to figure it out. No idea why nobody teaches it. They're things that no one ever covers. Ebooks, DVDs, courses. No one talks about these things. So that's what we're going to cover today. First off, a personal question. We're going to do a quick test for social pressure. Okay? I'm going to ask you guys to be really honest. And this is going to be potentially embarrassing, but I want you guys to be really honest with me. Okay? At the age of 16, who here was still a virgin? Okay, keep your hands up. Okay. At 17, who was still? Keep your hands up if you're still. 18. 19. 20. We got 2 less than the Mohicans over there. Okay? I want to applaud you guys for being able to withstand that social pressure and for that honesty. And I'm also going to tell you that for you guys, after the break, come up and grab these. These are 2 for each of you guys, right? 30-minute phone coaching sessions free, okay? I want you guys, despite having those disadvantages, I want you guys to get better. That's what we're here for, all right? Give those guys a round of applause. And to those of you guys watching at home, this is where you missed out. Again, I hope to see you guys here next year. All right, let's move on. Some things you're going to learn today. Why sometimes even the best coaches can inadvertently hurt your game. And a lot of times we don't even know that's happening. Sometimes the best coaches will give you advice that hurts your game. How do we prevent that? We're going to learn the pitfalls that most students make over and over and over again because they don't know what it is, and therefore they can't correct it. We're going to learn the 2 skills that you have to know to stay out of the friend zone. I felt like I was in the friend zone for like 10 years. It sucked, probably longer than that. But just in my development here, I was in that friend zone for a long time because nobody taught me how to get out of it. Nobody said, this is what you do. Everyone just said, oh, just keep going in field, you'll figure it out. They said, oh, just escalate. It didn't help me. We're going to talk about what you have to do to stay out. And we're going to talk about how to unlearn several commonly accepted theories. Some things that you guys expect to be true, you think are true because you've been told over and over that they're true, but they're not. These are blind spots, gentlemen. Good and bad advice. That's our first thing. This is going to be 10 things, 10 blind spots that are going to hold you guys back. The first one is this idea of advice. We all get advice from different people. Some of it's useful, some of it's not. A lot of people think that there's such thing, though, as good advice, or there's such thing as bad advice. There isn't. No advice is good or bad. Advice is only as useful as it is applicable. Which means I don't care who gives the advice. I don't care if it's the best coach in the world that gives you this advice. Because to him, that advice might be amazing. But to him, that advice might be worthless. Advice is only as good as it is applicable. That's an absolute key thing to remember. It's not universal. So the next time you guys are watching a DVD, you're reading a book, or someone's giving you advice, take that into account. There is no good advice. The best advice often comes from unexpected sources, because once again, it often is the advice that you need. So don't discount advice from people who aren't coaches. Don't discount learning lessons from people who you think, oh, maybe I'm better than them. Don't ever be afraid to learn from those people around you, because oftentimes that's when the breaking point happens. That's when you bust through those barriers, those sticking points. Most people, especially most coaches, fall into this problem right here. Most people give advice designed for people similar to them. And you know what? I'll be honest. I do exactly the same thing. I'm aware of that, and I try to calibrate that, but I do the same thing. Now, the only thing different, the only thing fortunate, is that most of you are like me. That's why a lot of you guys can identify with my story. A lot of you guys know where I came from, and you know what that feels like. Now, I happen to be fortunate in that regard. But most coaches, most people in general, will teach from their point of view, which also means if you have someone giving you advice, he's often giving you advice for where he's at. And if he's not aware of that, then he's going to give you advice that's really good for where he's at. What does that mean? That means if you're not where he's at, that advice is worthless to you. We've all heard, just be confident. I'll tell you right now that for a coach, just be confident is the best advice ever. That makes so much sense to us. We hear that, we're like, absolutely, just be confident. You just walk up like you're the man. You just be confident. That's all the game really is. It's confidence. It's simple. It's not hard. To us, that makes so much sense. But you know what? 7 years ago, that didn't help me because people tried to tell me that. And I had coaches that tried to tell me, just be confident, Fuji. Didn't help because that was advice for a coach. It wasn't advice for me. That wasn't advice for a student. We've all heard, just be yourself. I'll tell you right now, same deal. Coaches, you know what I'm talking about. Be yourself is the greatest advice ever. Just be your masculine self. Just be your core self. Just walk up. Like Syke said, at some point I had to walk up and put Syke aside because I had to walk up and be Jared. Be yourself is the greatest advice ever. For me, for him, for coaches. Not for you guys, as I'm sure you guys know. Because you've tried being yourself, and it doesn't work. Not at that level. Remember, advice, same thing here. Advice is only as good as it is applicable to you. We've all heard, you know, when you're going out, you should just have fun. Yeah, just have fun when you go out. I hear that everywhere in the community. And you know what? It makes a lot of sense to me. I hear it, I'm like, yeah, you should. I have way fun when I go out. I go out, I talk to people, I joke around, I screw around, I mess up, I self-amuse, I have fun. But you know what? 7 years ago, when I was in the trenches, when I was getting blown out every night, 20 sets in a row, that wasn't fun. And if you had told me that 7 years ago, you just got to have fun, then I wouldn't go out. Because what's fun to me is staying at home playing PlayStation, not going out and getting blown out 20 times in a row. I would never be here if I took that advice. That advice isn't good or bad. That advice is applicable to certain people. And for me 7 years ago, that advice was worthless. For me now, that advice is gold. Remember that the advice you get is only as good as it is applicable. Remember that, because there's a lot of people giving you advice out there for other coaches. There's a lot of coaches out there telling you, giving you super advanced stuff when you don't open. Oh, this is how you do a threesome. That's how you sexually escalate with 3 girls with you. Oh, the key to gaining attraction is to bring out like 4 10s with you. Then you have, let me get this straight. So I can't just even have friends, but in order to create attraction, I just need to bring 4 like 10 models with me. If I could do that, I wouldn't be asking you the question in the first place. I wouldn't have a problem. But that advice makes a lot of sense to coaches. So remember that. Filter that. Remember that a lot of coaches and a lot of advice have very good intentions. But if it doesn't apply to you, then it will not help you. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, let's move on. Unrealistic expectations require unrealistic work ethic. Absolute key thing. There's a blind spot. A lot of people don't realize this. A lot of people don't realize that those two are inextricably linked, because they say this. After I read that ebook, I'll build pole models, right? It's okay. Appearances don't matter, right? Looks don't matter, right, Fuji? That's what everyone says. A lot of us in this industry have very unrealistic expectations. Yet, we have very realistic work ethic. Some of us have really low work ethic, but we want to be Olympians. We want to be the best. We want to be gurus. We want to be amazing. Even the guys that have low expectations are still like, I want to be 10 times where I am today. There's still the guys that say, okay, I don't want to be professional, but I want to be really, really good. And those are oftentimes the same guys whose work ethic is also low. In order to be successful in anything, your work ethic, your discipline, must always exceed the difficulty in your task. It must always exceed your expectations. Because if you have goals to be an Olympian, but you train like an amateur, then you will be an amateur. In the Marines, they always tell us that you don't rise to the level of expectations you have. You don't rise to the level of opportunity, to the occasion. That's not the way it works. You always fall to your level of training. And if you train like a beginner, like an amateur, like someone who's not going to get good, then you won't. There's no secret magic formula that transforms that. Day in and day out, you see guys like this who want to train half-ass but want to get 100% results. It doesn't work like that. And this applies to anything that you want to do. This industry and the fitness industry happen to be 2 industries where a lot of people believe that. No matter what you want to do, if your work ethic exceeds your expectations, then you're going to achieve it. And we've seen that time in and time out. We've seen so many stories of guys that have been able to achieve amazing things when they shouldn't have been able to. Who here knows who Muggsy Bogues is? 5'3" NBA player, shortest player in the NBA. He should not have ever been in the NBA. He's shorter than me, and that's pretty short. He should not have been in the NBA. But you know what? He didn't let that stop him. And I guarantee you, his work ethic is probably 10 times that of a guy who's already 7 foot. I bet you money he works harder than Yao Ming. Because he's not 7 feet tall. He realized the difficulty of me reaching the NBA at 5'3" means I better work a whole lot harder. Now the good news is that you always can achieve that. There's very few people in this world that have some sort of disability or some sort of genetic built-in thing where they can't achieve it, or they can't achieve something they want to do. But you know what? The more difficult the task, the higher your work ethic has to be. I'm 5'4" and Asian. I know that firsthand. That's why I'm telling you guys. There's so many guys that I went through, 300 or 400 wings that I went through that aren't here today. They're not in pickup. And it's not because they got married and they lived happily ever after. They're still miserable because they couldn't hack it, because their work ethic didn't measure up. That's the key here. Number 3, importance of wingmen. A lot of guys here, a lot of guys in general, go out with guys that are worse than them. Now, no one can always go out with people better than you. It just doesn't mathematically compute. But you can go out with guys that have the skills or maybe the mindsets or the attitudes that you want. In my long-term coaching program, I always see students who say, oh yeah, I'm just going out with my regular friends. we're going to go to the bar, and I'm going to do the drills, and I'm going to do the assignments you gave me, Fuji. And I always tell them, don't go out with your regular friends unless you go to work with your regular friends that don't work at your company. You just bring your friends into work. Yeah, just come hang out. Well, we're just going to screw around at the office. You probably don't do that. I don't care what job you're in. Even I don't do that, and I work in a bar. You don't do that because you don't get things done. You surround yourself with people that are like-minded. In this right here, surround yourself with people that have the skills that you want. Now, maybe that guy isn't even better than you. Maybe you're better than him, but he approaches 20 sets a night and you approach 2. Then you want to go out with that guy because you need to increase your risk. You need to learn the things that guy, maybe he doesn't have anything going for him except that he's always positive. He never looks at things in the negative. Then you need to go out with that guy. But don't go out with guys that drag you down. And certainly, don't go out with guys that are always the guys looking to you to gain something. Don't go out with the leeches, and don't go out with the guys that are unwilling to push themselves. That's like going to the gym with a fat guy. Not a fat guy who's working out, a fat guy who's, you're lifting and he's eating donuts. What do you think is going to happen? You're going to look at that donut and you'll be like, this is not that fun. Fuck this. I'm going to go eat a donut with him. We are birds of a feather, gentlemen. We will do the things of the people around us. If you just think about the 6 people you hang out with the most, statistically, you average out their income. Your income is extremely likely to be that average. Which also means, if you want to be making more money, then you start hanging out with people that make more money. Birds of a feather. That's how all of this stuff works. Approach machine, if you guys aren't approaching 10, 20 sets a night, go out with somebody who is. I don't care how good he is. Go out with that guy. Because while you're standing around, just looking around, and you see this guy approaching, it's going to put the pressure on you to approach, and vice versa. Naturals. Go out with naturals. Now, it's going to suck. I'll tell you that right now. Right off the bat, it's going to suck. Because every night, they're going to pull, if they're good naturals. And you're going to be the only guy not pulling. It's going to be 3 guys, and you, and 3 girls. And you'll be like, this sucks. This is every night. It's going to be sometimes naturals who steal your sets, because that's what naturals do. They don't know the rules that we abide by, so they just come in and they steal your set. Then maybe they don't even mean to. They just happen to be male models. And when they walk by, girls are like, oh my God, who's that guy? It's going to suck. But you know what? It's a short-term loss for an extreme long-term gain. I'd say about 99% of my wings have and always will be naturals. Because there's not that many synthetics that are good. There's not that many guys like me that are good. It's like 1 in like 100,000, if that. Not enough guys that are actually doing it, so hang out with the naturals. Hang out with those guys and learn from those guys. Just being around them, even if all they do is steal your sets and make you feel bad because they pull every night, being around them will make you better. If I didn't have natural wings, I wouldn't be standing here today. At least 50% of everything that I know and everything that I have learned and absorbed comes from the fact that I hung out with the guys who can do it. Because I can read about it all day long in a textbook. But when you hang out with guys that do it, that have those mindsets, you absorb those too. Okay. Finally, loyalty. Hang out with guys that are loyal to you. Hang out with guys that you would normally be friends with. Hang out with guys that are going to have your back. Now, like I said, naturals, sometimes they'll steal your sets. But some guy tries to fight you, and a natural will step up. Even if he's a short natural, he will step up. Go out with the guys that are loyal to you. Because then, you don't have this idea in the back of my head that, oh, I don't want to approach that set because that guy might fight me. If you know your guys always have your back, that's just one more excuse in the back of your head that's not valid. That's how you pick your wingman. Last thing, brutally honest. They must be brutally honest. Do not go out with guys that are going to coddle you, because it will hold you back. Go out with guys that are going to tell you, you look like shit today. Go change. Go out with guys that will be brutally honest with you. In the Marines, they don't hold anything back. Your bunkmate will tell you if he thinks you're ugly. He will just be flat out, you're a really good shot, but man, you are ugly. He'd just be straight out with you. And you know why that's so refreshing? Because you never have to wonder if he's talking crap about you behind your back, because he's doing it to your face. So you never have to wonder, oh, I wonder if he's stabbing. No, he doesn't stab you in the back. He just throws everything out there. That's the best kind of wing you can have because you never have to second guess that guy. He's always right up front with you. Your wingman and the people that you surround yourself, extremely important to your development. Lastly, logistics. Remember that sometimes you're not going to have good logistics. A wing can help you not only manage the logistics, manage the other people in the group, which means he has to be a good wingman. And if he doesn't know how, then you guys got to learn that. And you have to learn this together. He can handle those logistics. When I was training in 2006, 2007, I lived 100 miles away from wherever I was going out. That makes logistics really hard for a pull because 100 miles is something that no girl is going to sit in your car for. But you know what? I had wingmen who lived 5 blocks away. Women can help you with logistics. A lot of the problems, a lot of the issues that I see guys come up with are things that are very easily solvable. But you have to think. You got to think outside the box. All right, let's talk about the greatest tactical skill that you can have with women. This is one of the things, again, blind spot. Nobody teaches this. Old school guys, remember the Venusian Arts Handbook? Remember that old school book? Remember the original DVD series that Mystery put out? Remember the old school juggler ebook? Remember all DYD? None of those ever taught you humor. At best, they taught you how to be cocky and blow yourself out. At worst, they just glossed over it and expected you to know it. Unfortunately, this right here is your greatest tool. It is your greatest tactic. And it really defines why some guys skyrocket ahead of the pack. I remember being in San Diego and going out, and we were all newbies. We all didn't know what the hell we were doing. And consistently, one guy in our group kept annihilating all of us. He kept getting results that we were like, we just started. How are you getting those results? How is that happening? That guy is that guy in the room in the back with the green. That's Robbie. Robbie's the funniest guy I know. That humor let him accelerate past all of us because it is extremely important. Remember that. If you don't have a sense of humor, I didn't have a sense of humor growing up. I was taught that children should be seen, not heard. I was taught not to speak up. Don't rock the boat. I had that conservative Asian family. And some of you guys have had that exact same upbringing. If you don't have a sense of humor, then learn it. And I know you're like, well, Fuji, how do I learn it? Think outside the box. I didn't have a tool. I didn't have a DVD that taught me humor. I had to think outside the box. With humor, this is your greatest social lubricant. This is what allows everything to happen. This is what enables you to escalate your sets. I never could figure out how to keynote smoothly because I never had that humor. And you know what? If you're talking to a girl and you're just talking about, oh, the weather's really cool. Yeah, it's hot today. I know, it's really, yeah, I don't really like it here. That's weird. That's what that is. She feels it, you feel it. There's not even a girl here, you still feel it. That's weird, and we've all been there. But if she's laughing when I say this, all of a sudden it's okay. If she's laughing when I escalate, all of a sudden it's okay. It's a social lubricant. Make sure that you learn it. It makes people like you. AMOGs, guys, groups, obstacles. Humor will make people like you, which is why if you don't have that, you better be rich, you better be famous, you better have something else going for you, because it won't work otherwise. Humor allows you to control interactions. The person in the group, generally, who's providing the most emotional value, i.e. humor, or being interesting, charismatic, essentially they all come back to humor. That person is who controls the interaction. Therefore, if you don't have that, it's really hard to control the interaction. Some guy comes into your set, and he's making everyone laugh, and you start talking about the weather and hope that they're going to pay attention to you. That's not going to happen. You better be funnier than that guy, or he's going to take your set. Damage control. When you are in that set, and she's like, I'm done. I'm over it. And you know it's going down the tubes, you're in damage control. How do you get out of that? Humor. Again, I didn't have these tools, and that's exactly why all these things were so hard for me, because I didn't have that. How do you learn it? Let's explore some ideas. Unfortunately, there's no quick fix. There's no, buy my DVD and you will instantly learn it. Because even if I did make that, it wouldn't work, because you can't learn it that quickly. But here's what I did to learn it. The first is I studied and I watched comedy. I read the books on stand-up comedy. I watched 1,000 hours of stand-up comedy. I watched every comic out there over and over and over again. I went out to the club some nights, and all I did is rehearse scripted comedy. I just memorized comedy routines by guys that did it professionally on stage. I just ripped their stuff off, went into the field, and just used it. Not because I was picking people up, because if I didn't have this tool, this skill set, then all those other things we just talked about wouldn't happen. So I went out and I practiced it. I got on stage, open mics, and I practiced it. And I bombed, but I practiced it. Most guys aren't willing to do that. Most guys don't sit at home and say, what do I have to do to make this happen? What do I have to do to get the skill sets necessary to make me successful? These are the things you need to do. Performing on stage, both speaking at Toastmasters and both doing comedy. Making sure that you're always practicing this. Being around guys that are funny. Being around guys that have that sense of humor. I'll tell you right now, probably 30-40% of my humor comes from Robbie. Because you hang out with a guy like that often enough, you laugh often enough, you start to pick up subtly the structures that's happening. We've all heard that's what she said, right? Pretty simple structure. You kind of know how that works. Some guy's like, man, it was really big. And then like douchebag Tim over here is like, yeah, that's what she said. We all know how that works. It only takes 2 or 3 times for us to pick up that pattern. Humor is all a series of patterns. You just have to learn them. There's 100, 200 patterns. You learn those patterns, you're able to implement them, and you're funny. That's all that is. And if you go to stand-up comedy, you'll realize you see the same pattern over and over and over again. Chris Rock, for example, his humor is almost always exaggeration. It's almost always taking a thing and exaggerating to the point where now it's funny. That's a structure that he uses. Learn those structures. I read the books. I did all those things. I did these drills. I went through over and over. I just drilled those structures over and over. And you know what? I wasn't funny a lot, and I weirded a lot of people out there. But that was the sacrifice that I was willing to make this happen. Let's talk about this friend zone. This is how it usually works. Right? If you've ever been in the friend zone, pre-community, or even in a set, that's exactly what it looks like. And if any of you remember Mario, he can't jump that high. Unless you hack that game, he's going to fall in that pit right there. That's how that friend zone works. Here's how to fix it. Flirting. Again, blind spot. Flirting is never discussed in books, in products, in DVDs and CDs. Every once in a while, someone will mention the term, and then we'll tell you how to do it. They'll just be like, you just got to flirt. It's really easy. Just flirt with a girl. And be yourself and be confident, too. That's what it says. And I read it, and I'm like, that's genius. That's so good. And then I remember what it was like 6 years ago, and I'm like, no, that sucks. Because the guy reading that is me 6 years ago, and he doesn't know how to do it. So telling him to just flirt is like telling a blind guy, dude, just see. Come on. Just throw away the cane. Just see. Just open your eyes, man. Come on. Doesn't help that guy. And would not have helped me either. This is how we do it. The prerequisite to flirting is social comfort. What that means is that you have to be more comfortable in that interaction than her. If you're not, then you're not going to be able to flirt with her. Because you're always going to be the one fidgeting. You're always going to be the one that's showing her that you're not comfortable. That baseline level of comfort has to be there. Now, that doesn't mean you need to exchange childhood stories, but you have to be comfortable with each other. If you're not comfortable with talking to people, then forget this. Remember we talked about advice? If you're not comfortable with just walking up to people, having a regular conversation, then don't even look at the slide. Write down in your notes, go out and talk to 20 people a day for the next 6 months. That's what someone told me, and it was exactly what I needed to hear. Remember, those rules apply to me as well. They apply to this as well. If this doesn't apply to you, then go out and talk to people. But that's what you need in order to make this happen. Flirting is a vibe. It's not a technique. That's why you can flirt without saying anything. You couldn't even describe the technique if you tried. Imagine trying to describe riding a bike. How do you ride a bike? Just put it in an ebook for me. I'm 6 years old. I want to learn how to ride a bike. Put an ebook together. There's no books on that, right? That'd be a genius marketing thing. Those of you guys that are like good riders and stuff, you should write a book on how to ride a bike. Because parents would buy that and they'd give it to their kids. Why doesn't that exist? Because that book would be like 10,000 pages long. It'd say, when you feel your equilibrium shift 3 degrees to the left, Turn the bike handles 7 degrees to the left to compensate. Then shift your body weight 4 pounds to the right. Do you think a 60-year-old can do that? Can any of us do that? No, that's how humor works. That's how flirting works. You have to be able to practice it, and that is the vibe. Now, I know what you guys are thinking, because if I was in your spot, which I was, I'd be looking at the guy with the mohawk, and I'd be saying, oh, Fuji, yeah, vibe. That's cool. That's really good. That doesn't fucking help me. What is the vibe? Here's how we do it. A, I'll just be straight up honest, hang out with black guys. Hang out with black guys, because they have no shame in flirting. They'll flirt with anything. Or hang out with guys that have the similar characteristics. Robbie has no shame in flirting. He'll flirt with a lamppost. He'll flirt with anything. It doesn't matter. He'll flirt with, like, my grandmother. He'll flirt with, like, anyone. He doesn't even have to have a vagina. He'll flirt with it. You know what? You get really good at flirting when you hang out with a guy like that. Really good. And you stop being afraid of it. You stop being ashamed of it. That's what I mean by the vibe. And you know what? Honestly, I wish I could put it into a system. I wish I could. This is why nobody talks about it. Because it's hard. Because most guys would stand on stage and be like, yeah, flirting, you just got to do it. Yeah, all right, next slide. Because it's hard. It's not something you can put into a structure. But if you want to learn it, if you want to be successful, you have to do these things. So the vibe, you hang out with guys that are good at it. You make the eye contact and the smile. That's a key thing on flirting. Those are prerequisites. You can't make eye contact, you can't smile, you will not flirt with her. Nobody flirts like this. It just doesn't happen. I don't care who you are. You be Brad Pitt. That will not work. You can't flirt like that. It's almost always some form of smile and eye contact. Those are just the absolute prerequisites, gents. It's not going to make you automatically good at it, but it will put you in the ballpark. So make sure you're comfortable with that. Because if you have shifty eyes, no amount of technique is going to help you with that. The dance. The dance is this courtship dance, this back and forth, the ebb and the flow of your interactions. That's how flirting works. Flirting, if you think about it, if you actually look up the dictionary definition of flirting, flirting is described, it's defined as to coquette, to act amorously without serious intent. In other words, flirting is to show interest but not be serious about it. Flirting, in essence, is push-pull. Flirting, in essence, is, let me go back. Flirting, in essence, is showing interest and then kind of taking it away or being ambiguous with it. Okay, so I talked a lot about this yesterday. Flirting is that process, that dance that you go back and forth. You'll notice any dance in the world is never always me pushing. It's always going forward and going back. That's how flirting works. It's the ebb and the flow. So when you're out there, you make strong eye contact. You smile at her. Use the lines that Sight gave you to practice this. In your head, look at her the same way the guy on the cover of the romance novel looks at you. Just emulate that. Straight up just emulate it. You know what? It's going to weird a lot of people out at first. The first 20 people you do that are going to be like, why are you staring at me? But you know what? That's a sacrifice you got to be willing to make. Because if you don't, you're like, I don't want to weird 20 people out. I'll just never get good at this. I'll always suck at this. Because I don't want to weird 20 people out that I'll never see again. You've got to be willing to make those sacrifices. Okay? Because flirting is so hard, because flirting is its own subject, its own topic. It's its own entire lecture that I teach in my long-term program. Here's what I want you guys to do. Send a text, DJ Fuji, no quotes. Send it to 50500. You will get back a link, and this applies to you guys at home. Send a text, DJ Fuji, 50500. It will give you a link to download my entire course on flirting. I don't have time on stage, unfortunately, to go really in-depth into it, but that will, and that will help you guys. And if you have questions, feel free to email me. Good to go? Yep. Good to go?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Critical thinking and devil's advocate. This is a big thing that I've been harping on a lot lately because it seems no one in the community has ever taken a critical thinking class. What I mean by this, if you look at this, the sky is filled with no's, the scenery is filled with no's, but if you want to see a yes, you're going to see a yes. You'll find a yes among those no's like that guy did. That doesn't mean the yes is there. It means you were looking for it. How many of us have ever bought a car? Show of hands. Do you guys just not drive? We all from New York? The rest of you guys just never bought a car? Okay, well, maybe we're all privileged and our parents give us a car, all right? Let's say we acquire a car in some form or fashion. How many of us suddenly realize that that car is on the road a lot now? All of a sudden, whatever car we're driving is everywhere. It's like, why is everybody driving the blue Corolla? Or whatever car you're driving. It's because whatever you focus on, you'll see. And whatever you believe, you'll find evidence for. Remember that. What that also means is that you got to enable your critical thinking. Otherwise, you're going to believe things that aren't true. You're going to believe things that are going to hold you back. You're going to believe negative things about yourself. If you think you're unattractive, I don't care who you are, you'll believe it. You'll find evidence for it. You could be Brad Pitt, like I said last year. And if he thinks he's unattractive, he will find evidence for it. I guarantee you there's websites on the internet about how ugly Brad Pitt is. I guarantee you they're out there. If Brad Pitt really thought he was unattractive, then he would see those websites. He would go to them. He would Google Brad Pitt ugly. And he would find those and he'd be like, man, I'm ugly. I have no shot. I'm just, look at the website. It's bradpittugly.com. It's out there. I'm ugly. I have no shot. You will find evidence for whatever you believe in. You have to be able to think critically to identify where the truth is. Because there's a lot of things that will lead you astray. The first thing here is, why do we care? Why do we care about playing devil's advocate? Why do we care about going through that? Because if you don't, you're going to believe those things. There's something called confirmation bias. It means that whatever you believe, you'll filter everything that you see to support it. If you believe that the sky is blue, then you'll see everything that supports the sky is blue. If you believe that the sky is red, then all you'll see is evidence for the sky being red. In pickup, if you believe you're unattractive, if you believe you're attractive, if you believe anything, then you'll just find evidence for it. So the first thing you have to do is question your assumptions. You have to question what you do believe. And you have to question, is that correct in the first place? You can't just search for evidence that'll support that. Because right now with the internet, or before the internet with the Bible, you could find evidence for anything you wanted to prove. Because there's evidence for anything out there. Feminism, misogyny, psychics. How do you think sham psychics work? The palm readers, how do you think the psychics work? Because they tell you 10 things about you. 9 of them are wrong, but you don't hear those. If you think he's psychic, then you'll latch on to that one thing he got right. And the other 9 things he got wrong, you'll just dismiss that. You'll be like, man, that guy's amazing. He knew what my favorite color was. How did he know that? You're like, well, he got it wrong 9 times. Oh, no, but he knew. He knew, like that was the time. You will find evidence for it. That's how psychics work. And if you look at a lot of preconceived notions like feminism, like misogyny, the men's rights movements, I have nothing against those movements. The problem, though, is if you have that preconceived notion, then everything that you think, you read, you see is going to be filtered through that. Have you guys ever read press on pickup? Have you read just the general press out there on pickup? You'll notice that the press is entirely defined on what their preconceived notions are. It's entirely filtered through whatever agenda that person is. Now, if you follow politics, that's no surprise to you. But most of us in pickup don't realize that applies both ways. Which also means you are doing the same thing. You're filtering everything that comes in through this preconceived notion. There's a lot of guys that come to me saying, Fuji, I'm Asian, I don't think I'm attractive. There's all these studies being done that show Asian men are less attractive to women in Western society than other ethnicities. Now, all I see are these things. I go out to clubs, girls don't like me, all these things. That's because you're filtering that. You're not filtering the guy in the club who's attractive. You're not filtering the fact that Rain turned down Megan Fox because she asked him out on a date. You don't see that. You don't see that because you're not focusing on it, because you're filtering it. What that also means, if you guys follow some of these movements, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but if you follow them, beware of the confirmation bias. Because if you follow, say, the men's rights movements, let's take that for example. Who's familiar with the men's rights movements? A couple of you guys, right? So it's this reaction to feminism. Oh, the feminists, they're always trying to hate men. We're going to be the men's rights movements. Now, we're not going to hate women, but we're going to support men's rights. The problem is that if you actually read a lot of stuff, you can tell it's being filtered. It's being filtered through a I hate women filter. So everything that they say has this tinge of I hate women behind it. You think that's going to help you in pickup? If you follow that, if you follow those things and you don't think critically, you don't play devil's advocate, then you're only seeing one half of the story. You're not seeing the other half. And you're going to go through life believing one thing is true. It's like believing one guy's story and never following up with the other side. You've got to see both sides. Whenever someone claims something, what I want you guys to do is always play devil's advocate. Always ask yourself, what's the other side to this story? Psych and I do that all the time. We're always arguing about pickup stuff. Well, what if you had 3 arms? Then what? Does that advice still, Fuji? I don't know. That rule may not. We're always playing devil's advocate because that's how we stop this whole idea, this whole thing of letting those filters affect what we're thinking. And I challenge all of you guys to do the same. Correlation does not imply causation. Who's ever heard that before? Who doesn't get what that means at all? Okay. Correlation means A is loosely associated with B. Causation means A causes B. Let me give you guys a quick example, because I hear this every day. I heard this yesterday from some of you guys. You said, oh, I used an opener. I used an opinion opener. I said, stop using opinion openers. No, but I used it, and I made out with a girl once. It works. So let me get this straight. So you probably used this 300 times, and it failed 299 times. But the one time it works means that that technique is really valid, right? Oh, wait, yeah, no. Those are all things we've thought. Because if you think opinion openers really, really work, then you'll find all the evidence you need for why they work. And you'll ignore the overwhelming evidence when it didn't work. I'm not saying they do or they don't work. What I am saying is question everything, because there's a lot of things that are correlation, not causation. For example, let's say I hook a set. Let's say every time I hook a set, it's because I'm wearing boxers and not briefs. Therefore, boxers make you hook sets. Can we see the flaw in that? Does anybody not see the flaw in that? We all kind of realize, no, the boxers have nothing to do with you hooking the set. That's correlation. And there's a lot of things in pickup where you let correlation determine your conclusions. And you'll say, man, this technique works. I used it once and it really works. And I'll say, what happens the other 100 times you use it? Well, it didn't work that time, but it worked that one time. Think, gentlemen. Critically think. Play devil's advocate. Look at both sides. Because otherwise, you're going to go down a path doing one thing that's going to hurt you over and over and over again because you're not thinking critically. Because you're not examining. You're not playing devil's advocate and going the other direction saying, well, what about the other times? That's what that correlation and causation is. Last year in 2010, I talked about the Asian unattractive reframe. That's a really hard reframe. That took me like an hour to figure out. There's a lot of studies. For you guys that don't know, there's a lot of studies, like scientific studies that show that in Western society, that an Asian guy has to make $250,000 more than a white guy to be seen by non-Asian women as equal in attractiveness. $250,000 more we got to make just to be equal playing field. If you're an Asian guy, that's really depressing. That's like, oh, fuck. Why don't we just go back to Asia? Just go back. At least we have some shot there until the white guys show up. Then we're fucked, but we'll just go back. If you're Asian, that's what you think. Those of you guys watching know exactly what you think because that's correlation. And as many studies has been done to show that, and if you Google it, you'll see it everywhere. It's on my website even. I've linked it. But you know what? It's correlation. It's not even causation. If you really get down to it, it's not causation. It's not Asian equals unattractive. It's Asian equals certain cultural stereotypes, certain cultural things that we do, and some of those things are unattractive. Because if it really was Asian equals unattractive, then you couldn't have attractive Asian guys. It just wouldn't exist. But again, if you believe in your head that, oh, this is how it works, and you don't question that thing, you don't question that causation, that correlation, you'll forever believe that. And that will hurt your game. Those types of beliefs will hurt your game. Almost every negative belief I've ever heard from a student, from myself, from everyone, is almost always a question of correlation. It's almost always a problem that they haven't thought through. Think about these things, gentlemen. I'll give you guys a quick example. If you look at my Facebook, there's a student, and he said, I wrote a quote, and I said, pickup is a lot like the fitness industry. It's a lot like the industry, the two industries are a lot similar. Because most people can't stomach it. Most people aren't willing to do what it takes to get the results. You go to the gym, and you can see it, plain as day. That huge fat guy at the gym, even if he's there, he's always doing the same thing. He's just like, oh, I'll just walk on the treadmill. He's never doing high-intensity stuff. He's never pushing himself, unless he's that one guy who eventually will become skinny. But the other 999 guys won't. Most people can't stomach it. Most people aren't willing to do what it takes. So I wrote this quote on Facebook, and someone said, Fuji, it's different, though. It's different because, in pickup, you don't get results a lot of times. Like you approach 90 sets, and you get blown out of 90 sets. Well, the 91st set is worthless because, as Einstein said, insanity means that you do the same thing over and expect different results. I'm going to get blown out of the 91st set. That's why I don't do pickup. That's why this will never work with me. And a lot of guys read that and were like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because it does superficially. I'm sure we've all thought that at some point. We looked at that, we're like, yeah, 90 times doing one thing and it doesn't work? Then why would it work the 91st time? Because that's just the same thing, right? Why are we just banging our heads against that wall? We've all thought that at some point. Until you think critically. Until you realize that each time you do it, the same variables aren't in place. Because you get better from try number 1, from try number 9 to try number 90. It's not the same variables. Things are changing along the way. If it was the same variables, then you get the same result. You start changing the variables up, like you getting better, and you will get better. It might not be that 91st set. It might be 191st set. But eventually, you'll get better. That's what I mean about blind spots. That's what I mean about critical thinking. Most people aren't willing to do that. Every day, I hear that from students. I hear things like that. And a lot of the negative beliefs, a lot of the things that are holding you guys back have everything to do with this right here, with this critical thinking. Let's move on. The best investment that you guys can make across the board is always you. And this is something that took me a long time to figure out. It's something that for the first 2 years of my development, and any of you guys have ever seen me speak before, I talk about this. The first 2 years, I refused to invest in myself because I bought into societal hype. I bought into society's idea of, well, pickup, you're a loser, so you should do pickup. And I was like, oh, I'll still do pickup, but I won't be a loser like those guys, who are like really taking it seriously. Because I don't need that. I don't need that. I just be myself. I bought into a lot of that hype. Part of that hype means if you invest in something like this, in getting better, then you got to admit to yourself, then you're not where you want to be. Society doesn't like that too much. It doesn't like that idea, especially with what we're trying to do. And I fell into that. I didn't invest in myself. And it wasn't until I had mentors who said, Fuji, you have to invest in yourself. You invest in stocks and bonds and all these other things, but you are unwilling to invest in yourself. How many years have you been wearing contacts, Fuji? You've been wearing contacts for 10 years. Why don't you get LASIK? Because you don't want to invest in yourself. You don't want to do what's necessary to make things better. There's always a reason why you don't want to invest in yourself. And sometimes it's money, sometimes it's time. But that hit home, and I started doing it. And I started realizing the ROI. Who knows what ROI is? Someone tell me. Someone yell out. What's ROI?
Return on investment.
Okay. What's your ROI when you invest in yourself? It's your whole life. And I'm not talking about just about pickup stuff. I'm talking about everything. When you invest in yourself, especially skill-based, that return is your entire life. I don't understand why people don't learn new languages. Because you have your whole life to use that. Why you don't learn goal setting. I'll teach my kids goal setting at age 3. Because their whole life they're going to use that. It's not something they're going to use from 3 to 5 and then forget. Everything that's going to benefit you your entire life, why wouldn't you learn that? Why wouldn't you invest in that? Most of us don't do that. When you do, that's when things start happening. Investing in yourself is all about collecting small edges. It's not one giant, like, oh, I'll take this $100,000 course and everything will change. It's not about that. It's little edges that we collect along the way. It's little things. Let's just take pickup for an example. Investing in yourself means having good fashion. Most people don't want to do that. They don't want to spend over $100 for a pair of jeans because Walmart's got jeans for $20. It's not worth the extra 80, 180, however much. Most guys aren't willing to do that. Your appearance is the easiest thing to fix. It's just so easy to fix that. You don't really have to do anything. You just got to have good fashion, buy clothes, hire a freaking person to help you shop, bring a girl to help you shop. But so many workshops I teach, I see guys coming in wearing clothes from the 80s. Why? Because you're not willing to invest in yourself. Invest in your appearance. Invest in your skill set. Invest in hobbies. Invest in things that you want to do. Invest in a career. Invest in things that are going to allow you to do things into the future. All of these things are those little edges, okay? Your appearance, like I said, easiest thing in the world to do. Something as simple as, we'll take photography. A lot of guys do online, a lot of people do online dating. Who here, show of hands, has done online dating before? It's good. It's really good, and it's a great tool to use. But most guys have never hired a photographer to take a professional photo of them. Most guys don't want to make that investment. Oh, it's a lot of money, Fuji photography, you know. That guy might charge me $100 to take one picture. I can take that. When you look at the studies, they actually show professional photography makes you look more attractive over the long haul, over a gigantic study on average, than a point and shoot, and even more than a camera phone. But yet, day in and day out, guys are like, oh, it's too expensive. I don't want to put the $100. I don't want to not go out to eat twice so that I can afford the $80 or $100 to get a professional photographer to take a headshot or take a picture of me. Guys are unwilling to invest. And that's why most guys will not advance above the pack. Remember, average is right here. It's like the pyramid, right? If you want to be above average, if you want to be the best at the top, you got to ask yourself, are you willing to do what it takes to get to the top? Because if you look around at everyone next to you and you say, I'm doing about what he's doing, I'm doing maybe a little bit more than him and not as much as him, then where are you? You're average. That's exactly where you are. If you want to get to the top, then you got to look around and say, I'm way more than him. I'm doing 10 times more than him. I'm doing 80 times more than him. There's no one in this room that's doing more than I am right now. That's how I know a guy will get to the top, because that's what his mindset is. That's what he's doing. But if you look around and you're doing the same thing as everyone else, then you will end up at the same place as everyone else, average. And if that's your goal, there's nothing wrong with that. But most of you guys don't have that goal, all right? Classes, training, coaching, and learning. Again, investing. This could be pickup, this could be photography, this could be anything. The things that you want to learn, the things that you want to get better at, the skills that you want to acquire, if you don't want to take an excessively long time to do it, then invest in yourself. I bought a camera, and altogether, camera's about $2,000. I wanted to get into photography. I really wanted to get into that hobby. And the first thing I did is I hired a coach to teach me. Because like I told some of you guys, I have no pictures from the Marines. 4 years of active duty service, 4 years of inactive duty, and I have 0 pictures. My kids, my grandkids one day will ask me, hey, what was your time like in the Marines, Grandpa? What was that like? Can you show me pictures? Here, put it on like the 3D screens we have everywhere. And I'll say, I don't have any pictures. None. You know why? Because I was too cheap to buy a $200 camera. So I have no memories from that. That's one of my big regrets. I have no pictures from that entire time I spent in the Marines. Because I was too cheap to just put $200 and invest in what's going to happen in the future. So now that I've learned that lesson, I bought that camera, and the first thing I did is I said, I'm going to have a coach teach me how to use that camera. Because the pictures that I take, knowing how to use that camera, if I can't take those because I'm not good enough, I'll never get them back. I can never go back in time and take those pictures. If I have a kid and I don't take pictures of him when he's born, I can't go back in time and take those pictures. Oh, I'm good at photography now. Let me go back and take those pictures. You can't do it. I've realized, especially over the last few years, that you must invest in yourself, always. I will invest in myself before I invest in anything else, because the return is huge. Because everything that happens in my life is going to be influenced by those investments right here. Things like in pickup, things like dancing, sports, cooking. Take a cooking class. I can't count the number of times when a guy says, hey, what do I do for day 2s? Cook for her. I don't know how to cook. Then take a class. cooked something together. Those skills are useful. Dancing. Most guys don't know how to dance at all. And their solution is just stay off the dance floor. Take a class. Learn to dance. I had a dancing instructor for like a year because I got tired of not being able to pick up on the dance floor. If you can't do that, then invest in yourself. Don't I'll just stay away from that. You want to get good at something, then you must invest in yourself. One of my mentors, James Malinchak, he said something to me that really resonated. He said the biggest wealth attraction mistake is not investing in a good mentor. And this is a guy that's built an empire. He's built millions and millions of dollars. He's gone from that rags to riches story. And he references a lot of his mentors and a lot of the things that allowed him to get there. And every time I say, I want to do something, I want to get good at something, the first thing I do is I find a mentor. Sometimes that's a paid coach, sometimes that's not. Sometimes it's just someone I know, a colleague, someone who's willing to take me under their wing. But the first thing I do is find a mentor, and I invest in myself. What I want you guys to do is I want you guys to brainstorm how you're going to invest in yourself. Figure out what you want to do, what you want to get good at, and start brainstorming. Start thinking about those things. Because if you're serious about getting good, that's what it's going to take. Always, always, always be investing in yourself. Sometimes it may not pay off. I've been to a $200 dinner that was a benefit dinner that maybe I thought could network. Sometimes that doesn't pay off. I went to that dinner and it didn't. Would I go to that dinner again? You're absolutely right. Because what if the second time at that dinner I'm sitting down next to Bill Gates? What if the second time at that dinner I'm sitting down next to a guy who's going to make me $1 million? You don't know. But I'm going to put myself in that environment because I know those guys are out there. And sure, you can see in the short term, oh, Fuji, just $200. That's a dinner. Why did you waste that money? Why did you spend that money? You didn't even make any networking contacts that mattered. Maybe not in the short term, but all it takes is one. All it takes is one contact to make you $1 million. And that makes up for a lot of $200 dinners. There's a lot of things in the things that we want to get good at. There's a lot of aspects where we're not investing in ourselves because we don't have that mentality. Think about that. A lot of you guys invest money in stocks. A lot of you guys invest time in things, in activities. But think about the things that you want to get good at, that you want to actually excel at, and start investing in yourself. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right, let's talk about DHVs. They're a flawed concept, first and foremost. Okay? Now, DHVs, demonstration of higher value, okay, is a concept that we came out with a long, long time ago. And the general idea is that you have to impress girls. It's a sophisticated version of impressing girls. Showing high value, all that stuff, it's impressing people. That by itself is what makes that the flawed concept, but we're going to get a little bit deeper. Okay? When I refer to the DHV, what I'm really talking about is this idea of throwing in little things to show people how cool you are or how high value you are. The problem is that it presupposes that you are automatically low value. You're automatically a loser. Bill Gates doesn't have to come up to you and say, hey, I'm Bill Gates, I'm rich. He doesn't have to. You already know who he is. He doesn't have to tell you how rich he is. He doesn't come in thinking, they think I'm really poor, I suck. I got to show them how rich I am. He doesn't think that. Successful people don't think that. Attractive people don't think that. The presupposition here is that you are already lower than the people you're talking to. Is that going to help you long term? Absolutely not. Because you keep presupposing that, you're going to believe it, even if it's delusional at first. The DHV concept is unattractive, regardless of if it's true or not. Regardless, even if it works or not. Even if it does work in some of those sets, it's still unattractive behavior. And who does unattractive behavior? The unattractive guy. If we go deeper into this, into DHV, I did a lot of case studies into this. And the thing with the DHV is the first thing is that it causes you to start micromanaging this idea of your value, your power. I don't want to lower my value. The problem is that the DHV is designed to raise your social value. In other words, how you're seen in the immediate vicinity. How do people actually take that? They say, I want to raise my value. Not social value, my self-worth. Most of the time, people aren't doing this correctly. Most of the time, people are seeing this as I got to start managing value because I got to be higher value than her. So I got to put her value down and raise my value up so she can be attracted to me. Even if that worked, which it doesn't, but even if that worked, all it would do is put you in field in your head, thinking about how you can manipulate value up and down. You'll notice naturals, every time you talk about high value, they're like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? Why are you, stop talking about value, that's retarded. Just go up and make her laugh. Just go up and just start talking about stuff. That's what naturals will tell you, because they don't micromanage value. Neither does anybody who's good. Nobody does that. The only guy who micromanages value is the amateur. So stop doing that. Here's the thing. Here's a problem with implied DHVs. Most of us know DHVs is like, oh, we'll tell a story. And in that story are little embedded things that show us to be attractive. Oh, yeah, I just picked up, my ex-girlfriend, or she picked me up from the airport, and she's a stripper. She picked me up in a Lamborghini. And I was like, why are you in a Lamborghini? She's like, oh, because I just won a modeling contest, and they allowed me to drive the car off. And I was like, wow, did you get breast implants too? And she's like, yeah, but I was thinking about having a threesome. It's not working. It's not working. Even if you had really great delivery on that, it's not working. That doesn't work. The problem is it's too hard to be subtle, the first thing. It's way too hard. 99% of guys can't be subtle enough. The only way to DHV effectively, if you're actually going to do it, is to do it so subtly that nobody notices. Literally nobody notices at all. If you told it to your wing, he'd be like, that's not a DHV story, that's a regular story. That's the kind of subtlety that it takes. But the bigger problem is that nobody actually believes you. Because when you're coming in and you're wearing jeans from the 80s, and you're like overweight, and you're like have glasses on, and you can't make eye contact, you're like, yeah, my stripper 10 ex-girlfriend, she's really hot, she's picking me up from the airport. What do you think the people on the other end of that conversation think? He's lying. It's not true. It's like when a homeless guy's like, hey, do you have spare change? I'm really rich, though. I'm not really homeless. Like, I'm really rich. I need change for, like, the gas. I forgot my wallet. You don't believe him? They know you're lying. It's really obvious. It's blatant. And if it's obvious to us, it's extremely obvious to girls. You are blatantly lying, and nobody's falling for that. The other problem is that if you're not lying, then you're bragging. One of the weird things I found about this idea of pre-selection. Pre-selection works. Don't get me wrong, it does work. You roll into a bar and you have 3 hot girls with you, everyone looks at you. It does work. The problem is that most of us try to trigger pre-selection by telling a story about it. Here's the problem with that. By trying to show through story, like, oh yeah, I'm surrounded by girls and everything, or I'm high value, whatever, is the girl thinks one of 2 things. She either looks at you and is like, that story does not add up to you. You're lying. There's no way you actually did that. You're lying. Or she does believe it because you have your look together, you're confident, everything else. And she's like, okay, I believe that. Why are you bragging to me? I don't need to know that. If Bill Gates came up and talked to you about his Lamborghini, and he came out and he tried to be really subtle about his Lamborghini. Yeah, man, I had to work on my car today, I had to take it into the shop. You're like, what car is it? He's like, oh, it's a Lamborghini. Even if he's being kind of subtle, you're still like, this guy's an asshole. He just keeps talking about his money. He's being subtle about it too. He's DHVing. But because he's Bill Gates, and because you already know he's rich, then when he brings it up, he's just a jackass. He'd be better off telling you, man, like sometimes, like I remember what it was like, when just absolute despair, like on the startups. And that's why I help other startups get started, because I remember those ramen eating days. We just have no money to actually eat food. He'd be better off telling you about his trouble with money. He'd be better off with that. One of the weird experiments that I did with DHV stories is one day, remember last slide we talked about questioning your assumptions. We talked about critical thinking. I started thinking about DHV stories and I was like, I don't think these actually work the way we think they are. Because I've been trying it out and I've been getting weird results. So I tried to do as close as I could to an actual controlled study. So I went out and 100 times I told a DHV story. And I got a good result most of the time, like 80% of the time, right? Then I took the story and I took all the DHVs out of it. So just a regular story. No DHVs, doesn't say anything good about me. I told the exact same story. I got the exact same result. I was like, that's weird. What's supposed to make this happen? What's supposed to make this work is those DHVs. Why am I getting the exact same results? And I said, okay, let me test this again. Let's throw in the placebo. So then I told the exact same stories, but instead of putting in the DHVs, instead of taking them out, I put DLVs in. I put times when I was like broke and like I couldn't afford stuff and how like I couldn't get with girls and like I was just really lonely growing up. I just threw as many DLVs as possible into that story. I was like, okay, here's at least we're going to see that when I throw this in there, it's going to bomb. And I'm going to be like, okay, you don't want to throw in DHVs, but you don't want to throw in DLVs either. You just want to tell a cool story. Now, when I tried that 100 times, and it worked better. I was like, what? No, there's no way this could work. Tried it another 100 times. It worked better. I was like, why does this work better? It shouldn't be this way. Why does this happen this way? And I tried to figure out what was causing that. I tried to isolate the variables that are causing that. Here's what I came up with. Again, this is a theory. Critical thinking. This is a theory. Doesn't mean it's right. This is my analysis of what's going on. Because I'm telling that now, and I already know how to tell a story. I already know the body language. I already have the look down. I have those things. She already believes those things about me. When I DHV, I'm bragging. And she's like, he's kind of a douche. When I don't do anything, then it's neutral. When I DLV, I'm humble. That's, I think, why it's working. In either case, what we do know, the conclusion that we do know for a fact is that the DHVs are not what we think they are. They're not actually causing that attraction. More likely, it's the delivery in your story. Because you tell a good story, you take the DHVs out, and that's the only thing that's working for you, and it still works. Again, gentlemen, blind spots. This idea of all of these things that we think are true that aren't. I see so many guys trying to DHV, thinking they're going to impress people, and it bombs in your face because it doesn't actually work under scrutiny. It doesn't hold up. It's like the world is flat theory. As soon as you test it, it blows up. It's not true. Start questioning your assumptions. Now let's talk about this idea of being alpha. This is another thing. There are a lot of guys. I see a lot of guys. Oh, I got to be alpha. You always read it on the message boards. I got to be alpha. One guy actually wrote this, and it was on someone's Facebook. And he said, man, some guy came up to me the other day, and like, I stepped on his toes. And then I looked at him, and I was like, what? What are you going to do about that? I was being alpha. I said, no, you're not. You're about to get your ass kicked. Bad. That's not alpha. Most people don't understand this idea of alpha. This whole concept is just completely misconstrued. This idea of what alpha is not what you think it is in your head. It's not what the ebooks say it is. That's why so many guys have a problem with this. The idea is confidence, not alpha, at least the alpha that we're thinking about. In our head, alpha is like Conan, a guy who just like kills people, like doesn't take crap from people. He's alpha, right? He's big, he's buff, he pushes people around. He's alpha. That's not the way alpha really works. And in that definition of alpha, you're actually looking more for confidence than you are alpha. Sin once said something to me about the difference between confidence and arrogance. He said that confidence is knowing you can do something. Arrogance is trying to prove to everyone else that you can do it. That's the same thing here. That's the same definition between this idea of alpha and this idea of confidence, okay? Alpha is not emotionally reactive. If you really want to get down to it, you just look at it from the animal kingdom. The alpha guy, the alpha animal, is the lion in the back who just sits there and people respect him. He's not the lion who's trying to kill everyone to show everyone how alpha he is. That's not the alpha. That's the guy who's trying to be alpha. And it's a much, much bigger difference. You don't want to be that guy who's trying to like shove everyone on and trying to show how alpha you are. That's not alpha. That's you pretending. And everybody knows that. Everyone knows you're the guy who's overcompensating. The alpha guy is the relaxed guy. He's the guy, have you guys ever met Hypnotica? That's a big dude. He like plays Wolverine right now at Comic-Con, like literally right now. And every year he shows up and he's got giant claws and he looks like Wolverine. He's a big dude. I did an interview with him. I look like 2 feet tall next to him. You can see it. I'm sitting next to the couch and he's taking up like the whole frame in the DVD. If you ever talk to Hypnotica, that guy's the most peaceful guy you'll ever meet. He doesn't try to assert his dominance on you. He doesn't push you. He doesn't even do the AMOG tactics where he like puts his arm around. No, he doesn't need to. He's Hypnotica. He's Wolverine. He doesn't need to show you. Bravo, we all saw him on stage. I think we can all agree he can probably kick all of our asses collectively. Does he ever push people around? Do you ever see Bravo like trying to out alpha guys? No, man, that's not how it works. Yeah, that's not how it works. Do you ever see him trying to assert his dominance over guys? Coaches or students or otherwise? Even in his regular life. Do you ever see examples of him trying to assert his dominance? No, he doesn't have to. He's taught the CIA, the FBI. He doesn't have to show some guy, random guy on the street, how tough he is. You see UFC fighters just on a regular basis going to bars, just getting into fights? No, they don't have to. They're UFC fighters. They do that in the ring. That's their job. When you try to prove to people how alpha you are, that automatically makes you not alpha. Alpha is the guy who doesn't care about that. He's cool with it. He's the guy that's okay to walk away from the confrontation because he has nothing to prove to those people. He's not the guy, he's not the Tupac who's always trying to show how tough he is. He doesn't need to. So this idea of alpha that you guys have, change that around. You don't want to be alpha, you want to be confident. You want to be the guy who doesn't need to prove those things. When you start doing that, all of a sudden everyone around you starts to relax because you're not that little fucking small guy with a chip on his shoulder who's always trying to like run around trying to prove himself. You don't want to be that guy, especially not if you're short, because then it's just worse. All right, when it comes to dating, when it comes to being attractive, men are alpha like women are hot. How many women are hot when you think about it? Think of the broad spectrum. A very small cross-section of the women are hot. A very small cross-section of the men are alpha. Everyone else is trying to do what? Pretend like they're hot. Pretend like they're alpha. Everyone else is trying to pretend. Don't be that guy who's trying to pretend. Be that guy who is. Because everyone knows when you're trying to pretend. The true alpha, the true hot girl, doesn't need to prove it. It's unnecessary. Finally, the knowledge paradox. This is a key thing. Most guys study way too much, and I know you guys have heard that. I know you guys have heard the guru speak and say, stop reading so much material. This is why, though. Let's really get into it. Knowledge is to skill as food is to healthy. You need some knowledge to acquire skill, just like you need some food to be healthy. What happens when you eat too much food? You're not healthy. You're fat. What happens when you take in too much knowledge? You're not skillful. You're keyboard jockeying. That's how that works. That's exactly how that works. There's a definite limit to that. You can't exceed that, or everything just blows up. You're a knowledgeable fat guy. That's how that works. When the amount of knowledge exceeds your ability to utilize it, it's wasted. That's how you got to look at knowledge. That's how you have to look at information. When in doubt, implement first, then get the information, because the information will be much more useful to you. Would you rather take a test first, and then knowing what's going to be on the test, then be able to study for it? Would you rather study, then find out what's on the test? I'd much rather know what's on the test first, because then I know what I'm studying. I know exactly what's useful and what's not. It's the same thing here. Err on the side of action. Here's the main problem. Excessive knowledge creates two things. The first is it creates paralysis. When you have too much information, you go out in field, and the only thing, or anytime you execute, the only thing you think of is how many different things are floating around in your head. If I tell you, walk up to a girl and say, hey, what's up? That's it. Then you're going to walk up, and you're going to say, hey, what's up? If I say, walk up to a girl and say one of 500 things. Let's go through it. Number one, you can say, hey, what's up? Number two, you can say, hey, what's going on? How's your day going? Number three, you can ask about her jealous girlfriend. Number four, and I give you all 500 of those things. What's going to happen when you go up? When you walk up, you're going to think, oh, shit, number 64. No, that's not a good one. 70. No, I don't like that one anyway. You're not actually even going to walk up, because in that process, you're going to get so in your head, it's not going to happen. This is not just a pickup thing. This has been around forever, this idea of analysis paralysis. It applies to every industry. You only want the information that's going to help you right now, because learning about threesomes when you can't open doesn't help you. It just clouds your mind. It just makes you think you're really smart because you know all this information. Implement first. Take action first. The other thing on this is this idea of the choice paradox. You can actually Google this. The choice paradox is this idea that the more choices you have, the less satisfied you are when you pick one of them, and the more confused you get because you have too many choices. The guy that has one job opportunity, he only has one job offer. It's really easy for him to choose what job he wants to work at because he's only got one. He just goes into work. The guy that's got 400 job offers, it's really hard, because even if he narrows it down to the one he wants, when he picks it, he's always saying, oh, well, what if I pick that? Maybe that one would have been better. It's always the grass is going to be greener on the other side. That's the choice paradox. When you have too much information, that's exactly what you do in field. You go in field, and the first thing you think of is, I have too many choices. That's why I don't give you guys 400 openers. You get one opener, because you don't have to decide which one to use. You want to limit the number of decisions, the number of choices you have to make in that moment. Just do one thing and do it well. The choice paradox hurts a lot of guys because they read too much. They read too much information. And it's not that information is bad, it's that it clouds their head. It's now they have too many choices. Now it's like, oh, I can use mystery method, or I can use juggler method, or I can use Fuji thing, I can use this, I can use this. Which one should I'm just not going to approach. That's what most guys do. And they don't. Most guys don't approach, and if they do, they don't approach enough because of that. All right, so let's talk about some major takeaways. We've talked about a lot of different things, a lot of those different sticking points that you guys are going through, okay? First, you want to filter advice. For that advice is applicability. You want to make sure that that stuff makes sense, that that stuff is applicable to you. Because if it's not only will it not help you, it will hurt you. You want to make sure that your work ethic exceeds your expectations. Because if it doesn't, you won't meet those expectations. You want to surround yourself with attractive people, with the people who have achieved or are achieving the things that you want to achieve. You want to learn humor and flirting. You want to be able to do those things. You want to be able to utilize those techniques, because if you don't, nothing else happens beyond that. You want to think critically. You want to question all of your assumptions. There's a lot, I guarantee you, right now, in this room, a lot of you guys have conclusions, they're just wrong, and you are convinced they are right. You're convinced that this equals this, or this is the answer to this, and they're wrong. So start questioning all of them, because those conclusions are what you're using to make decisions on your life. It's like if I had a conclusion that the world was going to end tomorrow. What decisions would I make? Well, I'd sell all my stuff. I'd probably call up all these people. I'd probably spend all my money. I'd probably do all that. That's all fine and dandy if the world actually ends. What if it doesn't? Kind of screwed tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, not that much fun, because I didn't anticipate this. You will make your decisions based on the assumptions and based on the conclusions that you have. So make damn sure that those conclusions are correct, because if they're not, then you're spending a lot of money hoping that the world's going to end the next day. Invest in yourself. We talked about that. Make sure that whatever you want to get good at, whatever you're trying to do, that you always remember that principle. You're always trying to invest in yourself. DHV stories, they don't work. That's the nutshell. They don't work. And finally, don't be alpha. Be confident. Okay? Excess information will hurt your development. All right. I want to leave you guys with one final quote. And it's something that I've used, and something that it's a theme that I've used to lead my life through. It's something that I follow. It's something that defines how I live my life, because I've felt those pangs of regret, and it sucks. And there's nothing you can do about it, because you can't go back in time. You can't go back to change things. It's a quote by Mark Twain. And he said, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the things that you do. So throw off the bowlines. Sail away from the safe harbor. Catch the trade wind in your sails. Explore, dream, discover. I'm DJ Fuji, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you guys. Thank you. Now here's the part where you guys at home just made a big mistake, because I'm about to give away about over $1,000 worth of training, in addition to all the other bonuses that these guys in this room are going to get. And a lot of that is because they have chosen to invest in themselves. They've chosen to be here. And I know it's really easy to just watch this online for free, but this idea of investment, these guys here have chosen to make that commitment. So my challenge to you guys sitting at home is that I want to see you guys here next year.